Warning: the experiences that you're about to hear are not from a calibration expert. This person has never calibrated a TV, and anything they say about accuracy should not be taken as a fact.
Welcome everybody to the channel, Tech with KG. So today we're going to talk about this update 1211.2, and I had to get that disclaimer in because I will only be using my eyes as observation. This video is going to be me filming it pre-update, post-update, putting that together, showing you before and after clips. I also filmed it with the G2 side by side so you can see it before and after with the G2 in the picture as well, set to the most accurate mode out of the box. And we're going to talk about how you could get your movie mode to look like what Filmmaker Mode looked like prior to the update for those that want to keep that Filmmaker Mode previous look. And trust me, a lot of people did like Filmmaker Mode. Of course, this was before the update, and you might not like it after the update. And those that didn't like it before the update, well, you might like it after the update. Let's talk about all of that right now. Before I begin, I just want to let you know that I do have the product links for this TV in the description below. If you guys are buying anything at all from these websites, it helps out the channel, so thank you guys so much. Alright, so what did this update change? Well, Tizen is a little bit faster, though you're not going to notice that right away after you update. You got to wait a little bit because after you update, it is always slow no matter what. But I did notice that it was a little bit snappier than before. But the big thing that changed in this update is going to be Filmmaker Mode. Now, Filmmaker Mode was something that was asked to be changed by Vincent of HD TV Test. And it's clear to me now that this man has a lot of power. All jokes aside, go check out his channel. He will probably have a really good breakdown on the accuracy portion of this Filmmaker Mode change. In the meantime, I'll do my best to try to explain the differences before the update and after the update. Alright, what you're looking at right now is a pre-update movie still of Blade Runner 2049. Now, I'm going to explain what I see that sticks out to me as wrong in terms of looking at it from a purely filmic view. So I'm going to try to look at this from the creator's intent, director's intent, / colorist's intent, whatever term you want to apply here. It's going to just be looked at from those lenses. Alright, so putting on my creator's intent spectacles, I can see that this image is very lifted. It definitely feels like there's a lot of over processing going on for this movie in Filmmaker Mode prior to the update. There's something about her jacket that sticks out here. I don't know, this whole entire image just feels more like it's been applied with like an Instagram filter or some sort of Photoshop effect. And so I would get why people wouldn't like this for a movie. This is probably not what the creator intended for, so it may be difficult for some to watch. I definitely think it's safe to say it lacks depth. Alright, let's flip it over to post-update, and now you can see, yes, it is a ton better than it was before in terms of giving you that filmic look. Now, I think it is closer to creator's intent. Now again, I don't know if it's accurate or close to accurate, but it just gives me the feeling that this is more accurate than it was before just by looking at it. Now I know not everybody is a fan of accuracy or the way that the creators intended it to look, and that's okay. You have your preference, and I'll give you some settings that can get you close to old Filmmaker Mode a little bit later. While the highlights don't look as bright as before, I have seen some other scenes where they get brighter than this. So what I think they're doing here is they're controlling the highlights a little bit better than they were before. So you won't have those scenes where you're having somebody walk around with a candle and it's just beaming extremely bright, even though you know the candle light's probably not that bright. Now before you get upset about the way this looks, you have to remember that my camera was locked down before and after so that you're not going to get a exact representation of the brightness and the contrast that I'm seeing in real life. What I saw in real life was a lot better than this in terms of contrast and depth, and the highlights, they stuck out a lot. I honestly really like the way Filmmaker Mode looks now, and I think you guys will love watching movies on this setting for the S95B. Give it a shot. So again, I can't tell you how accurate it actually is, but I can tell you it looks more accurate to me. Now, having the S95B next to the G2 post-update, I think the S95B does a really good job. I think the G2 is a fantastic movie-watching TV. In HDR, I saw that the G2 was more saturated than the S95B at times in Filmmaker mode, and to match it, I had to either bump the color up or switch the color space to BT 2020, which I thought was kind of weird, but that's just the G2. That's something that it just seems like the G2 really likes to push the reds a lot. Of course, both of my sets are not calibrated, so that's to be expected out of the box to have some of those things. Now, one thing I wanted to point out about the G2 is if you look at the faces, they do seem more processed, even in Filmmaker mode. It seems like LG is applying some sort of tricks, maybe something behind the scenes to enhance the faces a little bit. I don't know. It's just something I noticed when I look at it next to the S95B in Filmmaker mode post-update. Alright, so let's take a look at this scene from Batman vs. Superman. This is one of those fight scenes where it's really dark, and it's one of those scenes that looked really lifted previously before we updated. Now, after we updated, it doesn't look lifted at all, really, and if you wanted to match the G2, you could bump the ST2084 down to -1 or -2. I wasn't sure if the G2 was crushing still because I didn't break it in all the way, or what, I'm not sure. It could certainly be the case that the S95B is still a little bit lifted, though we won't know that until we get some proper measurements from somebody that knows what they're doing. Alright, so like I was saying, a lot of you guys might not like the new Filmmaker mode. In fact, when you compare Filmmaker mode next to the G2, you can tell that the processing that the G2 is doing is a little bit extra, and the S95B no longer has that. It really kind of feels like they turned off a lot of processing on Filmmaker mode for the S95B now. Though I have to admit, at times you will see highlights get much brighter than the G2, and you will still see the color volume come through when you are feeding it the right kind of material. Now, those of you that want the old Filmmaker mode back or something like that, you can use movie mode. And movie mode will need a few tweaks to get it to look more like Filmmaker mode because it is raised, way too raised out of the box. You're going to want to drop that ST2084. You might also notice color and highlights clipping from time to time, so you're going to want to lower the contrast down to 44 if that's something that bothers you. If you want to do that though, you are losing out on some brightness, so be careful if that's the route you go. Now, I think a lot of you guys will probably keep it cranked up to 50 and take the clipping as it comes. It doesn't happen a ton, but when it happens, it could be kind of annoying if you know what you're looking for. Even with these settings, I know people are going to be upset that Filmmaker mode is changed. Some people actually used it as one of the poppy modes, and there's no doubt about it, it was pretty poppy before the update, but now you have to adjust that to movie mode. You have to use movie mode if you're somebody who wants the picture pop and you don't want the Filmmaker mode. I suggest trying to mess around with movie mode before you update, and if you can get it close to Filmmaker mode where you like it, then you can update. But if you don't like it and you really want your Filmmaker mode to stay, then you shouldn't update. But you have to keep in mind that all the bugs that are happening right now that may be fixed in the future, you won't get those bug fixes if you never update. So that's something you have to take into consideration. Alright, well, if you found this content useful, please hit the like button and consider subscribing for future videos like the A95K versus the S95B. But in the meantime, if you want to watch something else, I do have the S95B versus a multitude of different TVs, so check that out. Thank you guys so much for watching, have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.